You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show, the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers today, but we have Daniel from California.
Hey, Ryan, Dan from California.
What's up?
Man, this year is just flying by, this offseason, I mean, and, the last few years, I've been really into the draft, and I've been all up on every single thing we've ever done, and, every move has just been, I'm not even engaged this year, and I don't know what it is. I'm in a fog. We're almost to April and almost, closing on the draft real quick, and I haven't watched any, tape or not even a highlight on any prospects, and this is kind of weird. Normally this is I sometimes like this more than the regular season, but I'm not even in it. I don't know if anybody feels a similar sentiment. It's just, I don't know. Just, for some reason, just rolling into this year just seems like this off season. I don't know. I don't know if there was a timing thing. Right when the season ended, it was already the Senior Bowl, and it was just wait, we didn't even get a few weeks. And it's just, you blink, and now it's weeks after free agency, and the combine's already done. I don't even know where the time went. I used to be able to see all this stuff, but I guess time's flying by too fast. But hopefully the draft goes well. We get the guys we want, and just optimistic that Goody and the scouting staff, they know what they're doing, and we get the right guys. We already had a top 10 defense, and we've seen Jordan have elite stuff before, so hopefully we can get the few things we need just to just improve. That's all we want, improvement. So that's all I got. Go Pack, go.
Yeah, I would say I feel somewhat similar. Time's flying by, and I'm just not. I'm kind of having to force myself to do stuff a little bit more. Couple thoughts on maybe why. Number one, the draft class is not particularly great. Even for those that might not think that that's it, how many people have you heard that... Find me one person that Packer fans are obsessed with. I don't know of anyone. I can tell you names that people generally like. Harmon is kind of a popular pick. I don't know that it's anything spectacular. It's not like, oh, we have to this, that, or the other. I think it's kind of I'd be content or happy if they did that kind of a thing. Same with Higgins as a wide receiver. It's a pretty popular sentiment, and a lot of it just has to do with, he's a guy that doesn't drop the ball much. He's kind of big, and he's not super athletic, which sucks. Packer fans like the hyper athletes, but at the same time, Packer fans are kind of, they don't want that, which maybe is also part of the problem. We're always looking for the freaks. And now this year it's freaks are bad, which is not really true, but it's kind of a weird sentiment out there. We need to find average people, but they're just good at football, which I don't think is a thing. But again, it's just everybody just wants the opposite of what we've been doing. But it's, there's, I don't know of anyone that it's Packer fans this guy or bust or anything like that. It's not even close. I think another issue is how the season ended. The Packers were a bad football team at the end of the year. It was bad. The way that the last quarter of the season ended, there was really no hope going into the playoffs. You try to drum it up maybe they could turn it around. It's possible, but they were just a dog crap football team to end the season. And so that in and of itself is going to cause some, lack of enthusiasm, but even more so than that, as far as what's the thing we need, because usually the Packers are close. So you identify if we just had this, whether it's a wide receiver or a pass rusher or a corner or whatever, I don't think that that's much of a thing. It's a lot of, we need better pass rush. We need edge rushers. We need defensive tackles. We also need corners, and we need wide receivers. And by the way, none of that matters if Jordan continues to play like that, because this team will just continue to suck. So I just don't know that there's a lot of... Packer fans are not Bears fans, right? Bears fans can be complete dog crap and then go get a couple guards and they're like, well, that's it. We fixed it. That fixes everything. Now we're going to win Super Bowls. And the media backs them up. They're like, oh, they did amazing things and they're going to be super contenders now. There's power rankings putting them ahead of the Packers and everything else. I mean, we don't generally do that. And I think there's a little bit of, plus free agency sucked. So there's nothing to get excited about there. Not only was there nobody that anybody really wanted, aside from the people that, largely stayed home. You got DK and Devontae, and that's it. And Devontae was never coming here. So really it was like DK Metcalf, and we didn't get him, and now there's just no hope. There's just nothing. So, yeah, I mean, there's not as much to even get excited about. I couldn't, everybody that I like is also kind of a thing. Like I've said with the defensive tackles, you got one guy that's an absolute freak, but I don't really like watching him play. He doesn't seem like a very good football player, but he's a huge guy that can move, which is crazy, and that's cool. And if we get him, those are great tools to play with. And then you got Harmon, who is like the pass rusher, except his sack numbers suck, and he only did that for 1 year, so I don't know if I trust it. And again, when I watched him, I didn't really see a dominant football player necessarily, so I'm looking at it like what happens with a lot of guys, where I'll watch it like Latu last year, where I'm like, I don't know how he got those numbers, because he does not seem impressive to me. He is the slowest, Frankensteiniest, bumbliest person in the world, which kind of contributed to some of the problems where I'd see he could have had a lot more sacks, but the guy has no ability to move without, if he has to change direction, he falls down kind of thing. And then there's my top guy out of Ole Miss, who I like, but he's kind of slow, lumbery, Frankenstein-y. He doesn't really move super well. I don't really care because it's mostly in tight spaces, and he can actually move pretty well in tight spaces. Kind of like a quick hop to the left and get north and south kind of thing, but he's very powerful and all that stuff. But, I mean, is he like, am I just massively obsessed with the guy? No, I like him. I don't think there is a Cooper DeJean in this class, or a Jerzon Newton, or just like the pile of guys that Packer fans are like, oh, this guy would be perfect. I can't even imagine at this point, and maybe it'll happen. I couldn't even, it's not any of the corners. I mean, I look on NFL mock draft database, and all the top picks are corners, which is surprising to me. But are people going to freak out if we don't get Jahdae Barron? No. Half the Packer fans don't even think we need corners. Like, oh, we got great corners. Valentine's great, and we already got a guy, and we don't even need that. So nobody cares. And then edge rushers, we clearly need it, but half the Packer fans just don't want to do it because we've done it so many times, and so there's that whole opposites thing where it's like, just stop trying. I don't care anymore. Okay, I guess. I don't know what the good that does, but well, have you seen our track record? So what is your solution then? Just give up on pass rush, or I don't understand what your solution is. And so you got half of the guys are undersized, the other half just don't have great production. So, the biggest freak reminds everybody of Rashawn Gary. So it's like, oh, I don't want that guy. Shamar Stewart. So it's like, I don't. And of course, everybody wants wide receiver because that's just what fans want. They always just want wide receivers no matter what. Unfortunately, it is a terrible group of wide receivers. And we've convinced ourselves it's a fantastic group of wide receivers, and it's really not. But even then, who's the guy that you're obsessed with? Let's assume Teteroa McMillan is gone. Who's the guy that is just that elite player? We got small speed guys that are not very good in man. We got tall, big guys with good hands that don't really have speed. We don't have a lot of great combos here. We don't have, I can't think of anybody that would be like a Justin Jefferson type from what I've watched. Just a phenomenal off the line of scrimmage, break your ankles type of guy, and that includes Teteroa McMillan. Or any of these Ohio State guys that have these ridiculous catches in the end zone and all that kind of stuff. I don't really see that this year. So is that what you want? And again, if so, then who? Who's the guy that everybody wants? I have no idea. I don't know who it is. But with that said, Daniel, I will say this. We are missing out on the fun of the offseason, and we got to get in it and just go watch people. And if it's just highlights, then it's just highlights. Sometimes you're just not feeling doing the grindy work. Fine, then just whip up some highlights, because that'll get you excited about people. Sometimes the highlights are stupid, especially for certain positions, because it's like, oh, safety highlights. Oh, is that like where somebody gets an interception? Wow. Like, sorry, I don't care. I can't even see how they got the interception. I didn't see, all I saw was the ball went right to them. Like, I'm not massively impressed by that. I don't know. All right. Aaron, what's up?
Hello, Ryan. This is Aaron.
Hello.
So, originally I was in the same boat with you, where I was like, the draft seems great. I'm going to go. And then, as it got closer, I was like, yeah, I don't know. Because I am very much introverted. Weird as that may seem sometimes. But I don't like crowds.
Yeah.
And I am terrified of traffic. Well, not really, but if I don't know where I'm going in traffic.
I get that.
Whatever, and plus places are super expensive to stay. So,
yeah.
But here's the thing, right? People watching. Not in a normal way, okay? Don't go there. But how often are you going to get that many people from that many places all over the place into one location? You can see the different qualities of different teams, and you might run into an Eagles fan and have a bad day. You never know. But it's just, for me, I think I'm going to end up going. I don't have a place to stay, so I'm going to drive up to Door County and sleep in my car, because that's what I typically do. Save a little bit of money, get a nice view. And honestly, my car's pretty comfortable, so I'm not going to complain about that. But here's the thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as people keep saying. But even more than that, it's just for the atmosphere, man. You and your podcast said, you don't plan on drinking. Neither do I. I go there and take it all in. I absolutely hate crowds. Do you know how many things I've, backed out of paying for? I've paid for and backed out of going to because of crowds? Yeah, I just don't like them. But this feels a little different. I might say that as we get closer to the draft. But, hey, you're going to be surrounded by Packers fans. You're going to be surrounded by friends and enemies and people you don't know, strangers. But at the end of the day, we're all there for the same reason, really. And it's more exciting for me than anything. So it's go if you want to, don't go if you don't want to. But I think you should. I think it'll be really cool. No peer pressure, though. Yeah. Anyways, I'm coming up on 3 minutes. Might call in with the Ute song later. Who knows? Okay, bye.
Yeah, I think another thing that's kind of bothering me about it is the fact that I can't do the stream if I'm there, which kind of sucks a little bit. Because I like doing that, and I like being home, and I like observing the draft and having all my stuff out in front of me. So I'm kind of torn between the way I want to enjoy the draft and then the whole once-in-a-lifetime thing, which, okay, I don't know. Once in a lifetime to do what? Something you don't want to do? We can talk about it till we're blue in the face, and I'll change my mind back and forth. I was looking yesterday, what events are they actually going to have and whatnot, just to kind of talk myself into it, because, again, my brain goes to the immediate negative, so in my mind, there was nothing else there. It's a parking lot jammed full of people, and then there's a stage over there, and that's it. And it's well, that's obviously not the case, so why don't you look up what they have? So I don't know. There's not going to be an answer until basically day of, and I'm either going to go or I'm not going to go, and that's just going to be the way that it is. Even if I told you today I think I'm going to go, it doesn't matter. Last year I was 100% going. It doesn't matter. So, again, it just We'll find out when we're about a couple days out from the draft if I'm going to do it or not. And I can tell you right now the answer is probably not. Even if I'm super jacked up. When it comes to day of, I don't know if this happens to you. It's like a part of the procrastination thing or whatever. But there's like kind of the stressful thing builds up. And then there's this feeling of you don't have to do it. You can stay home and just relax and get a freaking pizza and, watch it on your whatever and hang out and, and it's just the rush of excitement to not do things. It's what really got me in trouble in college. You wake up and you're like, oh, I'm going to freaking class. And then just that rush of dopamine of don't go. And then I just didn't go, and I missed a lot of classes, and it didn't go very well. It gets me in a lot of trouble. The whole, well, you don't have to do it. And then it's not just the fact that I don't feel like it. It's like an actual drug. It's like a dopamine hit of oh, I'm not going to do it. That's awesome. It's freaking weird. Stupid.
Hi, Ryan. Randy from Minnesota.
What's up, man?
Wow. Irony is not dead.
Okay.
I was just reading, and this will all be old, I'm sure, by the time this gets played, but I just found it really funny. It was a Monday morning quarterback. Rodgers wants to find a similar culture to Green Bay.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for.
Imagine that, huh?
Telling people, his close friends around him, apparently, according to this article in the Monday Morning Quarterback, is he realizes what he had for 18 seasons in Green Bay and wants to try to recapture that. Well, duh.
Well, and that was the point that I had made for a lot of these guys, is it's sort of a, when we hear, well, the Packers treat people wrong. Well, how do you know? Because the Packer players say it. Right, they say it on the way out the door. Then they go somewhere else, and a lot of them realize, you know what, I had it pretty good. They don't know. What are they comparing it against? What is Aaron Rodgers comparing his experience in Green Bay to? To what? To nothing. He's only ever been a Packer. He doesn't know. Well, he would know. How? How? Has he ever been with the Raiders organization or the Chargers organization or the Jaguars or Washington? Has he ever been at those organizations? Has he ever been in a truly terrible locker room? Not just bad by Packers standards. Has he ever worked with an actual crap owner as opposed to the president that we have, or a really terrible GM, or a really terrible coach? Has he ever actually worked with a coach that gives him whatever he wants to find out how actually horrible it is compared to this wonderful thing that he thinks it's going to be? He has no idea. And it took 2 years with the Jets to come back and say, I'm not playing anywhere unless they have the Packers culture, after he spent years denigrating the Packers culture and the way that they treat people and the way that they do things and all this crap. He spent years trashing this team, and that's what pisses me off about Rodgers. That's why I got mad at him. Because he's an entitled, spoiled millionaire brat that thinks he knows everything. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a GM. He's not a coach, and he needs to shut up and just be a football player. And he refused to do that. Then he goes to the Jets, and he becomes the head coach and quarterback and GM and owner, and it all went straight to hell. And he saw how terrible it was. It reminds me a lot of when you look at people like Antonio Brown with the Steelers, and you're like, oh, man, that guy's kind of a head case. Something's wrong with that guy. What's going on in Pittsburgh? Look at all these guys. And then they go elsewhere, and you find out how really crazy they are, and you start to actually respect Mike Tomlin a little bit, where it's like, dude, he was relatively normal when he was with you. That's crazy.
What were people telling him when he was here? The grass is not always green.
Right.
And maybe if you wouldn't have taken every single nickel, Green Bay could have had a few more pennies to play with and bring you in more help. Anyway, and if he does go to Pittsburgh, the rumor is that, I'm sure you've heard it, that Green Bay is going to be the away team playing Pittsburgh in Ireland. How?
Oh, that's true. That's the
Ireland
one,
about life
isn't it?
coming full circle. That would be glorious.
Forgot about that.
And then we just beat the snot out of them. Anyway, that's really all I got. Go Pack, go. Bye.
Yeah, it's very annoying that so much of the end of his career here in Green Bay was him whining about things not being good enough and just attacking the team and, you know, that whole nonsense about he's going to take a team-friendly deal, and it was just so shockingly unfriendly when you actually look at the numbers. And like I did the math after he left, and I was like, here's how much we paid for how much time he was here. It was terrible. I'm not going to say that was the reason we didn't win something, but it was very obvious that he was mad at Brian Gutekunst for doing what he should have done, which is draft a quarterback, because everybody knew that Aaron Rodgers' time was drawing to an end. They also knew that he was becoming disgruntled. They also knew that the last couple of years were filled with injury and bad play, including by Aaron Rodgers. The guy hadn't had like a premier season since what, 2016? Was that like his last really good season? 17 he was hurt. 18 the entire team went straight to hell. They missed the playoffs. They didn't even have a winning record that year. It was a disaster. So yeah, I'm very sorry that we have to start planning for the future. That's basic due diligence. But he got pissy, and good thing we got, you know, because he's spiteful, we got a couple of good MVP years out of him. That's wonderful. But we also got a whole lot of whining and complaining and trying to punish the team for daring to, attack the almighty Aaron Rodgers for basically just doing what they're supposed to do. Gutekunst didn't do anything wrong. He picked the exact right person at the exact right time to give us what we have right now. And I'm very sorry that hurt your feelings. But instead of just being a man and recognizing the reality of the situation and going on to play good football like you did and just be okay with it and say, as long as I continue at the top, I'm not going to lose my job. And if I start to dip, then I'm going to lose my job, and rightly so. That's the way that the NFL works. It works for every single person. You're not special. When the Packers go through a draft, guess what they're doing? They're trying to replace people. Other people lose their jobs on this team every single year. But no, you're special. You never get to lose your job no matter what. And again, instead of just being a man and a grown-up and an adult, you did what? You demanded a trade. And it happened all on draft night and everything else. It was a big spectacle, demanding a trade, refusing to talk to the Packers about it, being all petty. But you didn't get your way. So then what did you do? You demanded that Brian Gutekunst get fired. And they refused to do it. And so you took the third best option, which is what? Recognize that you won 2 MVPs, and you say, fine, I'll stay, but here are my demands. And your demands were bringing your friends in, which was a disaster, and giving yourself a massive contract that is a somewhat crippling contract, and then to have the audacity to turn around and call it a team-friendly deal. Yeah, I get a little annoyed by the way that the end of the Aaron Rodgers era happened. And so, no, I'm not shedding any tears about the fact that he went to the Jets to go prove a point that the Packers are wrong, and what happens? He gets to be quarterback, coach, GM, and owner. The team is about as bad as it's ever been. He spends 2 years in squalor. He now has no options. Nobody really wants him. He's got one team left, and he's going around begging for a team that has the Green Bay Packers culture that he abandoned and slandered for years. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama.
Yo.
I've heard you talk about the draft a lot, but I don't know if I've ever really heard you say whether you're a trade-up kind of guy, a trade-down kind of guy, a sit-and-pick type of guy, or more of a draft agnostic where, whatever happens, happens kind of thing. But I've always been more of a trade-down guy, but I decided to look at some data because I know you're a data-driven guy. Mm-hmm. You like to, little less on opinion, a little more of bring information. So I tried to do that, play by the rules. And now, of course, this is a little bit of a, AI type of search, a little bit of internet search. So how good this information is, it's debatable, but we'll use it anyway. So looking at since 2000, percentages of draft picks by round that, make a Pro Bowl. I tried all pro and all this other kind of stuff, but it just got a whole bunch of information. So this was the only one that actually got information, right, wrong, or indifferent, that was at least useful. May not be accurate, but it was useful. So long-winded way of
Since 2000, percentage of first-round picks that make a Pro Bowl, 35%, second round, 18%, third and fourth round, 7%, fifth and sixth round, 5%, seventh round, 3%, undrafted free agents, about 3% as well. So if that is accurate, it would seem that, you know what, even though 35% sucks, it's a lot better than everything else. So, you know, first-round draft picks are pretty important, and trading out of the first round, you know, trading back a few spots, picking up some additional draft picks, you know, hey, I'm all for that. But it would seem like you want to hold on to your first-round picks. You probably want to hold on to your second-round picks as well. And if you could finagle trades to get more first- and second-round picks, obviously, go ahead and do that. And then everything after that, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, is all kind of about a 5 to 7% crapshoot. And at that point, yeah, trade back. If you can get 2/5 and a 6 for a third, do it. So it seems like hold on to the first and seconds, trade the hell out of anything after the third to just load up on as many picks as possible. But that's I've kind of changed my thought process a little bit on that. So I don't remember ever hearing you say specifically where you stand on trade up, trade down, and I know you always need a dance partner, but just curious what you think and where do you land as far as, are you a trade up, trade down, stick and pick, agnostic? You know, how do you see that for you personally as far as your opinion? That's it. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Well, yeah, just a couple thoughts. Again, I kind of, I tried to follow your process as good as I can, so I'm sorry if I misrepresent what you're doing, but, the couple thoughts in terms of, like, we're speaking in sort of generalities, right? First round, second round. Well, first round pick 2 compared to first round pick 27 is very different. So, when we say trading out of the first round into the second round, the first round data as a whole is going to be better than the second round data as a whole. But what is it to move from pick 28 to the top of the second round, plus you pick up a third, as opposed to the alternative? So I'd probably want to look at that a little bit more granular, and there's a couple different ways that you could probably do that. I do tend to be more of a trade back person. The answer is what most people probably expected my answer to be, was something along the lines of, wherever the value is or whatever, which is true. But I think generally we don't actually know where the value is, that's kind of fake. And so as a general rule, as long as you're exchanging, as long as you're not giving up too much value to move back, I think because most picks are misses, the more swings, the better. And I do think data kind of bears that out. The fact of the matter is we don't actually know who the good picks are. Well, I want to trade up to get that guy because that guy's better than everybody else. Well, you don't know that. And it's a question of how much certainty do you have of that? And the answer to that is always going to be very little certainty. And so when you're dealing with a situation where there's significantly less than 50% of the draft picks that end up being very good players, in my opinion, you want just as many swings as you can possibly get. Because at the end of the day, you just don't know who's good and who's not. And doing the opposite of that and giving up multiple swings to take one bigger swing because we have some kind of supreme confidence that this is going to be better than the other first round pick, which is the other thing. A lot of times you don't trade back out of rounds, right? You'd trade back from 15 to 20 and you'd pick up a third round pick or something. But, it'd be interesting to kind of look at some situations where people trade up and look at what they gave up and just compare. Would you rather have this person or these two people? And just, the fact of the matter is I'd be willing to bet most of the time you'd rather have the multiple people, just because, again, the odds that any of these guys are going to be very good is relatively low. Now, it's different if you're talking maybe top 10. But if you're talking, outside of the premier guys, where the hit rate does seem to be a decent amount higher. I mean, what is the hit rate at the back of the first round? It's not very good. It's like, the Packers suck in the first round. Yeah, well, they usually pick at the back. Find most teams that pick at the back of the first round. I'm guessing their hit rate isn't very good. I mean, when you look at their hits, it's when they come inside the top 20. Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we'll look at Darnell Savage. Yeah, what was that, pick 28? Quay Walker was like 25 or something. Not saying it's impossible, and I wish the hit rate was a little higher for the Packers, but the idea that it's quote-unquote first round, therefore like it's all equal, no. Back of the first round is nowhere near the same as people like in the top 10, or even the top 15, or inside the top 20. So yeah, I'm just I'm maximally a skeptic in the whole process of scouting prospects. I think a lot of it is very similar. You know, the professional scouts are very similar to like professional investors. I'm very skeptical at their ability to actually find the really good investments as opposed to just randomly throwing your money in the market and allowing it to grow naturally. And so similar to that, you know, would you rather put a bunch of your money on one stock that an investor says is really good, or would you rather, you know, split up your money into multiple stocks? I'd rather split up my money into multiple stocks because I really don't trust the expertise of this is a great pick. I think that's mostly fake. All right, why don't we take our next break because we got 3 here from Nico. So rather than split them up, we'll just take a break. We'll be right back.
Ryan, how the heck are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Nico from Idaho.
What's up?
Been a while since I called. We've been pretty busy. Visited the little grandbabies up in Sandpoint. So
Nice.
beautiful up there. And wasn't able to really listen to anything while I was up there. So I was a week behind. So then it took me about a week to get caught up. So I'm pretty much caught up. All the drama that's happened, come and gone. Yay. So yeah, just no really main thing. Just wanted to kind of shoot the breeze. Say
Okay.
hello. I will say that I am definitely ready for the draft. Oh my gosh. As you know, I've said this before, I didn't used to like the draft. So the draft was different when I was younger. You know, back in the 80s and
Yeah.
I mean 70s I was real little, I don't remember that, but 80s and 90s I became a big football fan. You didn't really, I mean, they just did it. It just happened. Oh, the draft was last week. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, who'd they draft? And then you
I do remember that. I remember, so this would have been in the 90s, probably early-ish 90s, early to mid. I remember being at my grandma's house and sitting on the floor, like the draft is on. I'm like, ooh, I got to watch the draft. You know, I don't know anybody. Obviously, you don't know the prospects. You didn't have the internet. I mean, it was around, but we, you know, didn't have it. So there was no way to really get information. Maybe if you read the newspaper, like my grandparents probably knew more than I did. They read the newspaper every morning. I didn't read the freaking newspaper. I never even thought. It never occurred to me to like get data on the best prospects, right? I'm sure you could buy a guide or so. It just didn't occur to me. So I remember just sitting on the floor in front of the TV as a ticker went by on the bottom. And yeah, it was like you said, it just and it went on forever. Forever. I don't know when they changed the rounds. I could swear there were a bunch more rounds. Let me check that. So the first draft had 9 rounds in 1936. Then it went to 10. Then in 1939, they upped it to 20 rounds. In 1943, they upped it to 30 rounds, sometimes cited as 32 due to bonus picks existing during some of these years, but the standard structure had 30. 1950 to 1959 was 30 rounds. 1960, they dropped it to 20. During this period, the AFL also held its own separate draft. 1967, they dropped it to 17 rounds. And then, yeah, 77 to 92 was 12 rounds. So it must have been early 90s because I remember it being 12 rounds is what I had in my head. And yeah, it was like I'm excited about it. I'm watching, but it's so slow and it went on forever. I don't know what the structure was either. I don't think it's like it was today where it was one and then it felt like it just was like it started and it just went and that was it. Like I'm not saying it took a day or anything, but I don't know. That's just how it felt, where it was just like, I don't know, it's going and it just keeps going. And then you see the Packers pick someone, you're like, oh, hey, it's somebody I never heard of. Wow, okay. And then you do like, I don't know how much longer you can sit and do that, just sit in front of a TV watching a ticker go by. I don't even remember what I was watching, like if it was draft coverage. It wasn't like it was today, even if it was draft coverage. Because, I mean, there wasn't, like, highlights being pulled up because I don't remember anything cool about that. I feel like it wasn't even, I don't know if it was the news or something. It was just, like, I remember just being glued to the ticker, and that was mostly it. And then it wasn't like some big announcement when the Packers picked somebody. It was just like it flashed across, like, oh, Green Bay selected Jim Stevenson. Like, oh, dang, that's crazy. Then after a while, you realize, like, as much as I want to be like a huge Packer fan and like get invested in this really sucks, and I don't want to do this anymore. And so I'll just come back and check it in a few hours.
Look up and who they drafted. Oh, we got a receiver.
Yeah.
He's big, and you couldn't, go online and check his PFF score.
Right.
So you didn't know if they were any good. It's like, guy, 6'1", and he went to whatever college. Awesome. You couldn't get their ratings and their hand size, and
right.
No one was like, oh, we drafted a tackle, but he's got 27-inch arms. There's no way he'll be good. That wasn't a thing.
Right.
We just like, oh, we got a tackle, we got a receiver, we got a linebacker. Awesome. Now I was thinking, like, someday in the future, it'll be mandatory that, like, NFL players have to say what they've eaten. And like, well, no wonder you got tackled on that run. You went to Denny's last week and had all you could eat pancakes, you pig. I mean, it's like we're so like hyper
pig
centered on sports now.
Yeah.
With all the information, I wonder if the massive influx of information that just gets bombarded with this shoe size 40. The 40 has always been a thing. Even the 20, the 225 bench, that's always been a thing. So, like Randy Moss was drafted. Oh, he was 6'4", ran a 4.2 40. He's tall. Wow, that's crazy. But it's like we're so hyper focused on every aspect that I sometimes wonder if it makes the sport not as fun. And I get it. Some people like being that analytical. I mean, whatever. If you want to ruin your life being that, not that it's to ruin your life, but I think sometimes it just almost makes you worry about everything. Oh no, this shoelace was yellow last week and now it's white. I mean, holy moly.
Yeah, we'll get to part 2 in a second here, but I mean, you probably know that I'm a very much enjoy the data side of things. I don't know. I like learning stuff. I like making sense of things. I feel like we spend a lot of time just kind of floating around in like, whatever land, which can be fun, taking sort of the ignorance is bliss kind of approach to things, because I think that there's a lot of truth to that, although I think the opposite is true if you tend to be more of a negative person, where ignorance just makes you angry, irrationally angry all the time. But yeah, the data side can also, if you overanalyze or put too much stock in any one thing, make you just as miserable, right? Like, he had a low sack count in college, so he's a bust and I hate him, or his PFF grades are not good enough, or whatever the case may be. You just end up panicking. So concern is fine. Having a criteria and the Packers don't draft somebody based on your criteria, that's called a disagreement. I tried to come up with a way that I would have enjoyed and you didn't do that. And that sucks for me and my level of enjoyment that I would have had if you'd have gone a different route. But again, that's where I always talk about you gotta have a point where you turn that off after the draft. Just accept the reality. They didn't go the direction you want. I have reason to be skeptical, and I will be skeptical, but I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, and therefore I'm just going to choose to be miserable because everything is now, because I'm obviously correct about everything, and now that means Gutekunst is an idiot, and all these picks are failures. And then the absolute worst of the worst of this are people that will root against these people 24/7 just because they want to be right. This person sucks, and they can be great, like Rashawn Gary and Jair. You can be great almost your entire career, and then Jair has injuries, and well, that was a miss. And Rashawn's been great, except he got injured one year, and then he had one down year this past year, so now that was a bust, so you can't call that a good pick. Like, you guys are just stupid, man. You gotta stop.
So yeah, I wonder if just the fact that everything is like micromanaged and microanalyzed, that it makes the sport not as fun for people. I mean, I guess that's my hypothesis. I don't have any proof to it, other than most people that get insanely, can I say retarded on things?
Sure.
You talk about how they argue about everything. It seems to be younger people, like people my age. I'm 54. We're like, cool, yeah, I'm not saying that there's not older folks that are insane and younger folks that are cooler, but, and maybe as a fan base, we're kind of spoiled, because if you're 30, all you know is Packers that have been good.
Right.
And if you're over 30, you remember the other stuff, and you can appreciate some up and downs, and you can understand how that happens, I guess it would be an interesting thing, and maybe you've done it, although I don't remember hearing it. Like if you did like a 40-year search on some of the best players drafted and found out complete duds drafted right before them, or maybe do it the other way. Check out the worst, like Tony Mandrich. That guy was a dud, but on paper, he was the best thing on the planet.
Right.
He was like 6'5", like 300 pounds, ran a 4.5 40, and benched like 1 billion pounds. The guy was a freak.
Yep.
And yeah, he was doing steroids. Guess what, folks? Everybody does steroids in the NFL. I don't know if you know this or not. Everyone does it, and if they haven't been caught, it's because they're smart about it. I don't know if I've told you this, but back in 2011, the year after the Packers won the Super Bowl, we lived in San Diego. I got free tickets to the Chargers-Packers game. It was a great game. I think Al Harris opened up the first half with the quarter with the touchdown. He ran right down the sidelines, right at us. We were right in the end zone with all the Charger family members of the players, right? Well, how did they get those tickets, you ask? Well, you know how I got the tickets? One of my buddies, who was in the music industry, was buddies with the guy that supplied all of the Chargers with their human growth hormone. Yes, folks, HGH. This was not long after the time when it kind of hit the sports unit, and guys were not hitting 80 homers a year. Guys that before couldn't hit 10 were now hitting like 60 homers a year. So yeah, I got my tickets because there was a safety, Stephen Cooper, I think his name. He was injured, and his family didn't want to go, so I got the tickets. It's funny, when I'm sitting there, I'm the only dude in Packer garb, surrounded by, we'll just say folks that didn't have my complexion, that all had Charger garb. Oh, wow, look at the time. Time flies when you're having fun.
We better hurry up and get to part 3, figure out where this is going.
So I'm sitting there surrounded by people that clearly don't know me and are probably used to someone else sitting there, family member of whatever, the guy that was injured. And so you know how it is. You've been to games before. You sometimes get to know the people sitting next to you. And at one time this girl goes, "Hey, you." She says, "Hey, Green Bay." I got my jersey on. My son's got a jersey on. I turn around and go, "Yeah." She says, "How do you get them tickets?" And I said, "Well, I know a guy." She's like, "That's not that." But yeah, everyone does steroids. So we didn't know Tony Mandrich was going to be a bum. But we could have drafted Barry Sanders. We all know the story. Oh, my gosh, we didn't get T.J. Watt. Oh, my gosh, we didn't get Creed Humphreys. We're so worried about everything. But, so, yeah, that's how I got my tickets. So we knew Mandrich was on steroids. But like I said, everyone does it. We didn't know he was going to be. So, yeah, what do you do? I mean, so let's say we all love Donald Driver. Wasn't he like a 12th-round pick? Yeah. No one cares about that now. But nowadays, you have people like, well, he's good, but he was a 7th rounder. It was like, well, it doesn't matter. Just get a good player. That's why I am tired of drafting all the 9.9, Raz dudes. I just want a guy that can play football. I don't care if he scores a 3.0, but if he can tackle and take good angles, and has good hands, that's what I want. I want a football player. I think sometimes the Packers organization hyper-focuses on a talented player. Yeah, because when you get an Edgar Cooper and he can do all that and he's a physical freak, it's awesome. But you can get a physical freak. Nick Perry was a physical freak. That guy was a freaking dud, what was that guy? Drawn Harold? I remember that's the defensive lineman. He was a freak. He was a freaking cancer. So, yeah, we should all just chill. I kind of forgot where I was going, but we should all just chill and be happy with the picks we get. I guarantee you they're going to pick someone. I have no idea who, Every year I want someone and I never get it, so I kind of stopped caring. Once they pick people, I'll check out all their stats and I'll like them. But yeah, I think maybe the younger people are just so focused on everything they can't enjoy the game. I guess if I would say one thing, just, hey, all you youngsters, just enjoy the game, bro. I used to run a place here in Boise, it was above the high school football stadium, and I could just watch their games from my balcony. It was awesome. I don't know who was who, but it was just fun to watch football because I enjoy football, So, anyways, it's good to be back. I can't wait for the draft to be done because then I can be so excited about training camp, and then I can hate that after a couple days because eventually it all means we're rolling into the football season. So, go Pack, go, and here's some picking some studs. And here's to some people playing a little better this year. You know what I'm saying? Peace out.
I was with you there for a little bit, and then you kind of did the thing, that it seemed, I thought you were railing against the thing where it's like, here's exactly what we need to do. So it lost me a little bit on that part. But I do want to get into that because that's a big thing that everybody's talking about, right? We get the 9.9 RAS guys, and I just want good football players. The problem is every single one of these guys is good football players. That's why they're being drafted. Of all the college players, these are the best of the best of the best. All of them are. And that's not disputed. That's why they're all in the top 250 or whatever. So we got to get very specific with what exactly that means. And again, you mentioned, I can't get Edgerrin Cooper out of my head. The other Cooper, right? Is he? I think he's Cooper. Why can't I do it? The bottom line is, like, we can, obviously anybody can cherry pick things, right? Well, Christian Watson's great. He was a 10 RAS guy, and Rashawn is a great pass rusher. Again, I know but he's a great RAS guy. Jair is an RAS guy. Like, how many of our good players were just like not very good RAS guys, but just good players with whatever. And again, what does that mean? Are we saying like good PFF grades because that's like a film grade thing where it's like they just play well? Is it more like basic stats like tackling and receptions? Or I think what I need are people that share your sentiment, because I get kind of what you're saying, but I need definitions because I'm going to go look it up because I am a data person and I want to see what this looks like. Oh, Cooper DeJean, which, by the way, you mentioned Cooper DeJean. You know who had the highest RAS score of all corners? It was Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, the two guys that went to the Eagles that ended up having really good careers. So again, it's like, I think we build up this thing in our head where it's like, Cooper DeJean is just a good football player, but he's not like a super athletic guy. No, he was the number one RAS guy, and Quinyon Mitchell was number 2. He had a 9.85 RAS. Quinyon Mitchell was 9.79. The top 2 RAS guys were the top 2 corners last year as rookies. The top tackle last year was Joe Alt. He was number 1 in RAS among all tackles. Not saying this is how it's going to go, but again, I think we build up something in our head that's not true. And so I want to actually investigate it, but I need to know exactly what this means because I don't know what this means. To just be a good football player. The only thing I can think is PFF grade. So if that is your way of thinking, then I'm tired of these. And I get what you mean by project, but I think we also have to be very specific with our definitions because this is way too broad for me. I can't handle it. Every single person that we draft is a project. Every single one. Now, there's a spectrum here where some guys will explicitly say things like, I'm trying to think how they phrase it. Maybe they say project, but I thought there was another word. I had it earlier. But I mean, you've got NFL ready. They can start on day 1. And then you've got the guys that are a couple years out. Is that all we're talking about? Because, first of all, it's going to be hard to find, like, definitively. I mean, we could try to do it in the scouting report data and whatnot. But is that what we mean? Because if you remember, we got a guy in the 7th round a couple years ago. That was I think a safety. I forget his name. That's how great he is. He was NFL ready day 1. It's not really a talent thing. NFL ready day 1 is a different thing. It probably has more to do with the program that you play and the style of football. It's NFL compatible. That guy, I think it was Anthony Johnson, actually. I'm not positive. But he was a day 1 NFL ready starter. He's done nothing, and I don't think he's ever going to do anything for the Green Bay Packers, especially now that we just drafted 3 safeties. So that would be my request, whether it's Nico or anybody else, because I've heard this sentiment 1,000 times, and I get it. In fact, I think I've even said it. But I just don't exactly know what it means, and I don't think that we should say stuff if we don't even know what we're talking about. So let's flesh it out. What is it we want, and what is it we don't want? Guys that didn't produce in college but have high RAS. All right, so again, when we say produce, are we just talking about raw stats? Sack numbers, receiving yards, because, there's obviously going to be problems with that. I've watched a lot of guys who are super talented that have crap quarterbacks, and, they're wide open for a 50-yard touchdown, but the quarterback missed them. Is that their fault? Should they be blamed for that? Stuff is complicated, man. If all we really mean, again, is that I don't want a guy that's athletic, but everyone's like, that guy's not very good. That doesn't happen. Nobody looked at Jair or Rashawn or Christian Watson or Jaden Reed or any of these guys and said, yeah, they're athletic, but they're not good. Nobody said that. So, just a request, if we could. Let's define that a little bit. But, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. We got almost enough for a show tomorrow. Probably not quite, but so get a couple in if you wouldn't mind. But I will talk to you later. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to talk to you tomorrow because my wife just told me we got to get taxes done, and I haven't started that yet. So I may have to take the day off tomorrow to do taxes. We'll see. But anyways, have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.